Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the world's most extensive, complex, and often overlooked subjects and perform a total knowledge extraction just for you.
Today we are attempting to comprehend, well, the sheer scale of the most successful group of organisms on Earth. We're diving into the world of the undisputed biological champions. The beetles. That's the order Coleoptera.
We talk about biodiversity a lot, but the scale here it's really something else, isn't it? When we use words like champion or heavyweight, it's not just talk, it's statistical fact.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are staggering. As of today, there are roughly 400,000 described species of beetles.
400,000.
And to put that in perspective, that single number accounts for nearly 40% of all described arthropods. But here's the real kicker. About 25%, a quarter of all known animal species on this planet, is a beetle.
Wow. 1 in 4 animals that we've identified and cataloged is a beetle. That kind of statistic just stops you in your tracks.
It really does. And that's just the described species, you know. Based on ecological models, the rate of new discoveries, conservative estimates suggest the true total could be anywhere between, say, 0.9 million and maybe even 2.1 million species globally.
That's an unbelievable range.
It is. The sheer magnitude is why we really have to start with that quote, the one that perfectly sums up their biological supremacy.
The famous story, maybe true, maybe not, about the geneticist J.B.S. Haldane.
Exactly. When Haldane was asked what his, extensive study of creation revealed about the creator, his supposed response was just an inordinate fondness for beetles.
And when you look at the numbers, their success across time and space, it makes a lot of sense.
It becomes a pretty compelling point, yeah.
So our mission today is to figure out why. What's the secret sauce? What is it in the beetle blueprint that let them colonize pretty much everywhere and evolve into so many forms? We need to look at their armor, their unique biology.
Their metabolic tricks, their survival strategies.
Yeah. And the explanation has to start with the defining physical trait, that incredible armor. Specifically, the hardened front wings, the elytra.
Right, and even the scientific name, Coleoptera, it tells that story straight away.
It does, Coleoptera. It comes straight from ancient Greek. Koleos means sheath. And tarnon means wing.
Sheathed wings.
Literally. It's all about that protective casing they wear.
But interestingly, the common English name, beetle, it focuses more on offense, not defense.
That's true. It comes from the Old English bitella, meaning little biter, which is related to baton, to bite.
So whether you see them as armored tanks or tiny biters, people have recognized their core traits for a very long time.
Okay, let's move into eye distribution and morphology. The beetle blueprint. With hundreds of thousands of species, they must be incredibly adaptable. Where do we find them?
Pretty much everywhere. They're global citizens. You find beetles in almost every habitat you can think of. The only real exceptions are like the deep sea trenches and the permanent ice caps.
So rainforests, deserts, underground.
Yep. Tropical canopies burrow deep near plant roots, dominating freshwater ponds and streams. They're there.
That omnipresence is key. But to really get the power of this blueprint, we have to look at the extremes it supports. The size difference alone is just wild.
It's astronomical. Seriously, take the largest. For sheer weight, the larva of the Goliath beetle, Goliath
beetle, okay.
This grub can reach at least 115 grams. That's over a quarter of a pound. And 11.5 centimeters long. It's the heaviest insect stage known.
Heavier than a small apple, like you mentioned before.
Wow. And the adult males aren't exactly small either. They often weigh between 70 and 100 grams, making them the heaviest adult insects.
Okay, heaviest. What about longest?
For length, that title goes to the Hercules beetle, Dynasty's Hercules. If you measure the full span, including that huge curved horn on its pronotum.
Right, that massive horn.
It can reach at least 16.7 centimeters.
That's like almost the length of my hand. Okay, now we need to zoom way, way in.
Yeah.
From that giant down to the smallest.
Prepare for whiplash. We have to shrink down to the scale of the smallest known free-living insect, which, surprise, surprise, is also a beetle. The featherwing beetle, Cytocella musuacensis.
Featherwing beetle. How small are we talking?
Tiny? As little as 325 micrometers long.
Micrometers. So,
yeah.
Less than half a millimeter.
Way less. You could line up like 50 of them end to end across a single centimeter. The evolutionary pressure allowing one order to span that kind of size range is just incredible.
And their success, as we said, it comes back to that basic body plan, that morphology, the armored blueprint.
Exactly. The underlying plan is super successful. You've got a distinct head, a thorax split into two parts, the pro and terathorax, and then the abdomen. And the whole thing is encased in this rigid exoskeleton made of these plates called sclerites.
Provides defense, keeps them from drying out.
Right. Defense against predators, prevents desiccation, but it's still flexible enough at the joints for them to move around.
And the star player, the elytra, those hardened forewings, usually fused down the middle, making that protective dome.
They offer amazing protection. But there's a trade-off, aerodynamically speaking. For most flying beetles, those heavy elytra have to be lifted up and held out of the way before the delicate hind wings, the actual flight wings, can unfold and start beating. So taking off can be a bit slow, a bit cumbersome.
But not all beetles stick to that exact design, do they? You see variations.
Oh, definitely. Think about rove beetles. Their elytra are really short, only covering the first few bits of the abdomen.
So less armor.
A bit less protection, yeah, but it gives them way more flexibility. They can run faster, bend their bodies more easily. Then you have soldier beetles. Their elytra are famously soft, almost leathery.
And what about the ones that just gave up flying altogether?
Good point. Species like some ground beetles, the Carabidae, they've completely lost the ability to fly. And in those cases, often the elytra have actually fused together into one solid, impenetrable shield.
Maximizes defense, maybe helps hold moisture in dry places.
Exactly. Better defense, better water retention.
And that armoring extends to the head, too. Powerful jaws and those super important antennae.
Yeah, the head's usually heavily sclerotized, often angled down or forward, houses strong mandibles for cueing. And the antenna, that's where you see some real evolutionary creativity. They're vital sensory organs detecting movement, smells, chemical.
And the shapes vary incredibly, must signal different specializations.
Totally. You see everything. Simple thread-like ones, clubbed ones, comb-like ones, like the European cockchafer, Polyphilophilo, has these amazing fan-like antennae to catch pheromones.
Wow.
Weevils, the Curculionidae family, they often have geniculate or elbowed antennae.
But the craziest adaptation you mentioned has to be the venomous antenna. That's wild.
Isn't it? The longhorn beetle, Onychocerus albitarsus, it just pushes the limit of what you'd expect an antenna to do. They actually have structures on their antenna capable of injecting venom.
A sensory organ turned weapon.
Yeah. It's a unique defense among arthropods. Shows how flexible that basic beetle blueprint is. An organ usually for sensing the air gets repurposed for chemical warfare.
Okay, last piece of the blueprint. The legs. Obviously for walking, but adapted for all sorts of things too.
Most just use them for walking, sure. But the specializations are everywhere. Aquatic beetles, like diving beetles, Thyrticidae, their hind legs are basically swimming paddles, flattened rows of long hairs.
Designed for water. What about digging?
For digging, fossorial lifestyles, you look at scarabs or clown beetles, hysterity. Their legs are wide, tough, often covered in spines, perfect for moving soil quickly, whether they're burrowing or burying dung.
Makes sense. And then there's the quick-to-get-away legs, like flea beetles.
Ah, yeah, flea beetles. They're a type of leaf beetle. Their hind legs have these massively enlarged femurs, the thigh segment, packed with muscle.
Jumping.
Exactly. They store up energy and release it in this explosive leap. Catapults them away from danger in a split second. It just shows how that simple three-part body plan is this universal toolkit for specialized functions.
All right, let's shift inside. 2. Physiology, reproduction, and life cycle. Complete metamorphosis. The success isn't just the outside armor. It's the internal machinery, too. How do they eat? How do they breathe, especially somewhere challenging like underwater?
Well, metabolically, they're often generalists. Diets vary hugely, but a lot are herbivores, breaking down tough plant matter, usually in their anterior midgut. But predatory groups, like those ground beetles, the Carabidae, they have a neat trick.
Oh, yeah.
They actually start digesting their prey outside their bodies. They regurgitate digestive enzymes from their midgut into their crop, liquefy the meal externally, and then suck up the resulting nutrient-rich soup.
Huh. Efficient. But okay, the most impressive internal trick has got to be that underwater breathing the physical gill.
This is just beautiful biological engineering meeting physics. Diving beetles need to breathe underwater, right? So when they dive, they trap a bubble of air.
Where do they keep it?
Either tucked tightly under the elytra, those wing cases, or held against the body by special water-repellent hydrophobic hairs.
So it's not just like a scuba tank with a limited supply.
Not at all. That bubble functions as a physical gill. See, the oxygen concentration inside the bubble starts lower than the dissolved oxygen in the water around it.
Okay.
So physics dictates that oxygen from the water diffuses into the bubble, constantly replenishing the supply. At the same time, metabolic waste like carbon dioxide, which dissolves easily in water, diffuses out of the bubble.
So the bubble is constantly refreshing its oxygen. That's amazing. What's the limit then? Why do they have to surface?
Ah, good question. The key is nitrogen. Air is mostly nitrogen, which doesn't dissolve easily in water, so the bubble is relatively stable. But as oxygen is used and replaced, that nitrogen does slowly dissolve out into the water.
So the bubble shrinks.
Exactly.
Okay.
As it shrinks, the partial pressure of the gases inside changes. Once the bubble gets too small, the surface area for diffusion drops, the oxygen can't get in fast enough, and that's when the beetle has to go back up. It needs to grab a fresh, full bubble of air, mainly to replenish that crucial nitrogen volume.
Wow. A time-limited, self-refreshing gas exchange system. Incredible. Okay, shifting gears completely. Fireflies. Biological light bulbs.
Right. Fireflies, the Lampyridae family, they produce light through what might be the most efficient biochemical reaction in nature. They use these special modified fat cells.
Fat cells make light?
Yep. And these cells are often backed by tiny white crystals of uric acid, which act like little reflectors, making the light seem brighter.
And the chemistry. How does the flash actually happen?
It's the oxidation of a chemical called luciferin. An enzyme, luciferase, makes this happen using ATP, the cell's energy currency, and importantly, oxygen.
And it makes light.
It makes oxluciferin, some CO2, and light with almost zero heat waste. It's incredibly efficient. And by controlling the oxygen supply very precisely, they can flash their lights on and off. That's how they talk to each other. Signal for mates. Complex dialogues in light.
Amazing. And while some talk with light, others have evolved to hear sounds, often as a defense.
That's right. Tympanal organs, basically eardrums, have been found in some groups, notably certain ground beetles and rhinoceros beetles, the Dinustinae.
What's special about their hearing?
What's really cool is that these organs are specifically tuned to ultrasonic frequencies, way above what humans can hear.
Suggesting they're listening for something specific.
The strong hypothesis: bats. It's thought these ears evolved specifically to detect the echolocation calls of hunting bats.
So they can take evasive action.
Exactly. An integrated acoustic defense system. Hear the bat coming, get out of the way.
All these amazing internal systems support them through their life cycle, which is also key to their success. Complete metamorphosis, polymetabolism.
Yes, this strategy is fundamental for many successful insects, and beetles just nail it. They go through 4 totally distinct stages. Egg, larva, often called a grub, then the pupa, sometimes called a chrysalis, and finally the adult, the imago.
And the larva is the main eating machine.
Oh yeah. The larval stage is usually the primary feeding stage. They're designed to just consume and grow. Voracious eaters.
And even the larvae look really different depending on the beetle type, right? Reflecting their lifestyle.
Absolutely. Larval shapes tell you a lot. You've got the active flattened campodeiform larvae, like in ground beetles, faxed movers. Then the tough, cylindrical, hard-shelled elatériform larvae, people call them wireworms. Those are click beetle larvae.
Oh, wait.
And then the classic C-shaped, fleshy grubs, the scarabaeiform larvae. You find those in scarab beetles.
But some beetles take this transformation even further with hypermetamorphosis. That sounds intense.
It is intense. Hypermetamorphosis is like metamorphosis on steroids. It involves radical shifts in larval form during development, usually in parasitic species like blister beetles, the Molloidae. Let's use Epicauda vittata, a specific blister beetle, as an example.
Okay, walk us through its life.
So the first stage, the first instar, is this tiny, supermobile, long-legged larva called a triungulin. Its only job is to find a host, in this case, grasshopper egg pods. It's an active little hunter.
Finds the eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
Once it finds the egg mass and feeds for a bit, it molts. And the second stage looks completely different. It becomes a caraboid larva, slower, looks more like a typical ground beetle larva.
Right, settling down to feed.
Pretty much. Feeds for maybe another week, then molts again. Into a third form, the scarabeidoid stage, now it looks like a soft, C-shaped grub. Sedentary, just focused on storing nutrients.
Wow, 3 different larval forms.
And it's not even done. It then often enters this kind of dormant pseudo-pupa stage to survive winter before it finally makes the true pupa and then eventually becomes the adult beetle. It's a multi-stage survival toolkit built right into its development.
That developmental complexity is amazing. And it contrasts with the huge range in how long they actually live.
Right.
Some just weeks, others decades.
Yeah, lifespan varies wildly. The absolute extreme end is the ivory-marked beetle, Eburia quadrigeminata. Its larvae bore into dead or dying hardwood trees.
Tough food source.
Extremely tough, very low nutrition. So development takes a long time. There are documented cases of adult beetles emerging from furniture, floorboards, wooden beams 40 years after the wood was milled.
40 years.
40 years. And in one incredible case, 51 years. The larva was essentially in suspended animation inside the wood the whole time.
That's like biological time travel. Incredible. Okay, let's talk about mating and competition. With so many species, how do they make sure they find the right partner?
Chemicals are key. Pheromones are crucial for long-distance attraction and making sure you're signaling to the same species. Different groups use totally different chemical signals, like some scarabs use fatty acid derivatives, others use amino acid ones.
Different chemical languages.
Exactly. And of course, fireflies have their unique light shows. Complex flight patterns combined with specific flash sequences, signal species, sex, readiness to mate. It's all coded in the light.
Beyond chemicals and light, there are some amazing mechanical solutions for reproduction. That thistle tortoise beetle example is mind-blowing, like miniature engineering.
It really is a marvel of microscopic hydraulics and material science. The male thistle tortoise beetle has this reproductive organ, the intromittent organ, called a flagellum. And it's incredibly long and thin, like a tube.
Okay.
But the female's reproductive duct is also really long, and it's coiled up like a spring. So the male faces this huge mechanical challenge.
How does he get that thin structure through the coiled tube without it just buckling or bending?
That's the genius of it. The flagellum has to become temporarily rigid enough to navigate that whole coiled tract, but still be flexible enough to be stored inside his body when he's not mating. Researchers found it uses this amazing combination of stiffness and resilience. It actually hardens as it's being inserted.
Wow. And that has implications for us.
Big time. The way that flagellum works, becoming stiff under pressure but staying flexible, it's given engineers ideas for designing better microscopic medical devices.
It's like tiny catheters.
Exactly. Microcatheters that need to navigate complex, delicate pathways inside the human body without kinking or damaging tissue. The beetle solved that problem millions of years ago.
Nature as the ultimate engineer. And finally, physical fights for mates. That explains some of the really dramatic looks, like stag beetles.
Oh, yeah. Sexual dimorphism differences between males and females is really obvious in territorial species. Stag beetles, Hercules beetles, rhinoceros beetles. The males often have these enormous, sometimes totally bizarre-looking mandibles or horns.
Not for eating.
No, purely weapons. They use them in ritualized fights with other males, trying to pry their rivals off branches or flip them over to win access to females or resources.
Okay, we've seen the incredible anatomy and life cycle. Let's get into 3. Behavior, ecology, and survival strategies. How do all these features let them dominate ecosystems?
Well, starting with just getting around locomotion. We talked about the elytra being a bit clunky for takeoff, but some groups found ways around that, like the Cetoninae, the flower chafers, or fruit chafers.
How do they fly differently?
They have modifications along the sides of their elytra. They can keep the main wing cases mostly closed and actually extend their flight wings out laterally underneath the edges of the elytra through little slits.
Ah. So they don't have to lift the whole heavy cover.
Right. It allows for a much smoother, more controlled flight. Better maneuverability, faster takeoff compared to the standard beetle method.
Clever. And going back underwater, the physical gill is amazing, but it's part of a bigger aquatic package, right?
Definitely. The gill handles the gas exchange, but managing that air bubble is crucial too. Those hydrophobic hairs we mentioned are key for trapping and holding the bubble using surface tension. It lets them stay down hunting or feeding for quite a while before that nitrogen issue forces them back up.
A big part of their success has to be that they eat almost everything. Their feeding diversity must be just off the charts.
It's totally exhaustive. Beetles occupy nearly every trophic level imaginable. You have super specialized herbivores, think longhorn beetles boring into wood or weevils attacking specific plants. You've got generalist predators like ground beetles and rove beetles eating other invertebrates. And then there's the cleanup crew.
The detritivores, eating dead stuff.
Absolutely essential. The coprophagous ones eat dung. Neprophagous ones eat carcasses. They are incredibly efficient recyclers in many ecosystems. They find and break down dead organic matter super fast, stopping waste buildup and cycling nutrients back into the soil.
And sometimes they form these really intricate partnerships, like the ambrosia beetles and their fungi. That sounds like farming.
It is farming. It's co-evolved agriculture. Ambrosia beetles bore these complex tunnel systems into dead or dying trees, But the key is they carry specific fungal spores with them in little pockets on their bodies called mitochondria.
Like seed packets.
Exactly. And once inside the tunnels, they effectively plant these spores and cultivate fungal gardens.
And the fungi help them digest the wood.
Yeah.
Because wood is hard to eat.
Precisely. Wood is tough to break down, and it often has toxic chemicals. The fungi digest the cellulose and lignin, detoxify it, and concentrate nutrients into their own fungal tissue. That fungus becomes the sole food source for the beetle larvae and adults in the colony. A perfect mutualism.
It's easy to think of beetles as solitary creatures, but you find some really surprising social behavior too, like parental care and even true social structures.
Yeah, while most just lay eggs and leave, the exceptions are fascinating. Burying beetles, Snickerophorus, are probably the best-known example of parental care. A pair finds a small, dead animal, like a mouse.
And they bury it.
They work together, they bury it, clean it by removing fur or feathers, roll it into a neat ball, coat it with antibacterial secretions to slow down decay, and then build a little chamber underground around it.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
And then they lay eggs nearby. Once the larvae hatch, the parents actually feed them regurgitated food from the carcass. They even adjust how much they feed them based on the begging behavior of the larva. It's really intensive care.
That's amazing. And if that's not social enough, you mentioned the ultimate level. Eusociality, like ants or bees.
This is the big outlier. Eusociality with cooperative brood care, overlapping generations, and a reproductive division of labor, like queens and workers. You mostly see that in Hymenoptera, ants, bees, wasps, and termites. But there's one known, truly eusocial beetle, the ambrosia weevil, Australplatypus incompertus.
Ambrosia weevil, so it's also a fungus farmer.
Yes, related lifestyle. They live in these extensive, long-lasting tunnel systems inside eucalyptus trees in Australia. A founding female, the queen, starts the colony. But crucially, her daughters stay in the nest.
They don't leave to start their own.
Many don't. They stay, help maintain the fungal gardens, defend the tunnels, and care for the next generation of larvae laid by the queen. These helper females seem to forgo their own reproduction to help the colony thrive. That's the hallmark of eusociality.
A beetle society.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, switching to defense survival means avoiding being eaten. Beetles must have a massive toolkit for that. Camouflage and mimicry.
Masters of it. So many species use crypsis blending in, leaf beetles that look like leaves, weevils that look like bird droppings or bits of bark. Then you have Batesian mimicry harmless species imitating dangerous ones. Lots of longhorn beetles look uncannily like wasps, bright colors, jerky movements.
The full predator.
Exactly. But then there's the really dramatic stuff. Aposematism warning colors, bright reds, yellows, oranges on ladybugs or blister beetles. That signals, I taste bad, or I'm toxic.
Right, blister beetles secrete nasty stuff.
They do, but the absolute champion of chemical defense has to be the bombardier beetle.
Ah, yes, the explosive beetle. How does that actually work? It sounds impossible.
It's applied chemistry, basically. They store two chemicals separately in internal glands, hydroquinones and hydrogen peroxide. Think of it like keeping two reactive ingredients apart.
Okay.
When they're threatened, they pump these two liquids into a special thick-walled mixing chamber at the rear end. Then they add enzymes, catalase, and peroxidases. And pretty much, the enzymes instantly trigger a violent exothermic reaction. It generates a lot of heat and gas pressure very, very quickly.
That's why the spray is boiling hot.
Yep. The mixture hits about 100 degrees Celsius boiling point of water, and the pressure blasts this hot, noxious spray out through nozzles they can actually aim quite accurately at whatever's bothering them, often in rapid pulses.
And the beetle itself doesn't get cooked.
The reaction chamber is incredibly tough and heat-resistant. It contains the explosion and directs it outwards. Amazing adaptation.
What about simpler defenses, behavioral stuff?
Oh yeah, lots of that. The classic playing dead thanatosis. Many weevils and other slow beetles, if disturbed, just instantly drop off whatever they're on, tuck in their legs and antennae, and lie perfectly still.
Hoping the predator loses interest.
Exactly. A predator might just see an unmoving, unappetizing little lump and ignore it. Gives the beetle a chance to escape later.
And click beetles, they have that dramatic escape jump.
Right. Beeladderdae. They have this unique mechanism. A spine on the underside of their first thoracic segment fits into a groove on the second segment. They can bend their body, building up tension.
Like cucking a trigger?
Sort of. Then they release it suddenly. The spine snaps into the groove with an audible click, releasing the stored energy and launching the beetle several inches into the air. It can use this to escape or just to right itself if it lands on its back.
So versatile. Okay, finally, let's talk about tolerating extremes. especially cold. Some of these survival stories are just breathtaking.
Many beetles cope with cold by entering diapause, basically a programmed hibernation state with lowered metabolism. But the Alaskan beetle Cucujas clavipes penicis,
Yeah.
its larva takes cold tolerance to a whole different level.
This is the one that survives being frozen solid, down to like minus 100 Celsius. How is
Yeah.
that even possible?
It involves some serious biochemistry. Ice forming inside cells is usually deadly. It physically shreds things. These larvae do two main things. First, they produce antifreeze proteins that inhibit ice crystal growth. Second, they synthesize huge amounts of cryoprotectants.
Like natural antifreeze.
Exactly. Things like glycerol, but also more complex sugar alcohols like xylomannan and 3-tol.
And didn't you mention dehydration?
That's the crucial trick. Before it gets really cold, the larvae deliberately dehydrate themselves, reducing the amount of water in their cells.
Why? Seems counterintuitive.
Because by removing water, they drastically concentrate those cryoprotectant chemicals, the xylomannan and 3-tol. This super concentrated solution lowers the freezing point of the remaining cell fluid so much that it doesn't form sharp ice crystals. Instead, it vitrifies, turns into a glass-like solid state.
So it freezes solid, but without the damaging ice crystals. Surviving minus 100 degrees C. Mind-blowing.
What about the opposite extreme heat? Desert beetles, like tenebrionids, face intense heat. Some can tolerate ground temperatures up to 50 degrees C, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Others use behavior. Think of those whitish tiger beetles you see on hot sand.
Yeah. What do they do?
They do stilting. They stand up tall on their legs, extending them fully, lifting their body as high off the scorching ground as possible. The ground can be much hotter than the air just above it.
Creates a little air gap, reduces heat absorption. Smart.
Very smart. And then there's the ultimate water collection adaptation from the driest place on Earth, the Namib desert beetle.
Right. Stenocara, the fog catcher.
The fog stand beetle, yeah. Stenocara gracilipes. Lives where it basically never rains. It gets water from the fog that rolls in off the Atlantic. And it does it passively, just using the structure of its back. It's elytra.
Oh, what's special about its back?
The surface is covered in this amazing pattern. It has tiny, smooth, hydrophilic bumps, water-loving bumps, and these bumps are surrounded by waxy, hydrophobic trocks, water-repelling channels.
The water sticks to the bumps, but slides off the rest.
Exactly. The beetle tilts its body up into the morning fog. Tiny fog droplets condense specifically onto those hydrophilic bumps. As the droplets grow bigger, they eventually get heavy enough to overcome the surface tension, and because the surrounding area is waxy and water repellent, the water drop rolls neatly down the channels, straight towards the beetle's mouth.
Passive water harvesting.
Yeah.
Incredible. And that's inspired technology, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's a prime example of biomimicry.
Yeah. That Namib beetle is the perfect lead-in to our final section. 4. Relationship to humans. Pest, resource, and inspiration. Beetles have been tangled up with human culture, history, and technology for millennia.
Oh, deeply. Their cultural impact goes way back, especially in ancient Egypt with the sacred scarab beetle, Scarabaeus saucer, a type of dung beetle.
Right, they were revered, seen as divine.
Very much so. Linked directly to Khepri, the god of the rising sun. The Egyptians saw the beetle rolling its ball of dung across the sand and connected it to Khepri rolling the sun across the sky each morning.
So scarabs meant rebirth, sunrise.
Rebirth, resurrection, creation. Scarab symbols were everywhere on seals, amulets, jewelry. Hugely important in funerary practices.
And they pop up in Greek and Roman times, too.
Yep. Pliny the Elder wrote about stag beetles, noting their big mandibles. And there's a Greek myth about a guy named Cerambus being turned into a longhorn beetle described as black with hard wings. Though maybe less glamorous, apparently Greek kids sometimes used captured beetles as toys.
Huh. Okay, so ancient respect. But the main modern interaction is often negative, right? Beetles as major pests.
That's a huge part of the story, unfortunately. About 75% of beetle species eat plants, phytophagus, both as larvae and adults. When their tastes overlap with our crops or timber, the economic damage can be immense.
The classic example has to be the boll weevil in the U.S.
Anthonymus grandis. Yeah, that little beetle fundamentally changed the American South. It came up from Mexico around 1892, spread through the cotton belt.
And the larvae eat the cotton.
They feed inside the developing cotton bolls, destroying the fiber. Yields plummeted. Despite massive efforts to control it, it's still considered the most destructive cotton pest in North America. Cost producers something like $13 billion over the years, forced whole regions to diversify away from cotton.
And they hit forests hard, too.
Definitely. Forest pests are a massive ecological and economic problem. bark beetles transmit the fungus causing Dutch elm disease, wiped out elms across continents. In western North America, the mountain pine beetle has killed millions upon millions of acres of pine forest. Huge impact on timber industries.
And maybe the ultimate pest success story, in a way, is the Colorado potato beetle. Resilient, it doesn't even cover it.
Leptinotarsa disseminata, a master of evolution and fast forward. It eats potatoes, tomatoes, eggplant, loves them.
Yeah.
But the problem is, different populations of this one species have evolved resistance to basically every single major class of insecticide we've ever developed.
Every class.
That's incredible.
It's a constant battle. They adapt so quickly. In fact, their destructive potential was even noticed by military planners. You mean as a weapon?
During World War II, yeah. Both sides apparently considered using the Colorado potato beetle as a form of entomological warfare. The idea was to drop them on enemy crops to cause food shortages. Germany even ran tests, releasing tens of thousands near Frankfurt.
Wow. Weaponized beetles. Okay, but despite the pests, many beetles are incredibly helpful, right? Beneficial allies.
Absolutely crucial. They're vital parts of our agricultural systems. Lady beetles, ladybugs, Coccinellidae, everyone knows them. They're amazing predators of aphids, scale insects, whiteflies. Total biocontrol heroes.
And ground beetles help too.
Yeah, ground beetles munch on pests like wireworms and caterpillars. Some even eat weed seeds, helping farmers that way.
And the economic value of dung beetles.
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier. It's huge.
Staggering, really. Dung beetles save the U.S. cattle industry an estimated $380 million every year.
How? Just by burying dung.
By burying livestock dung quickly, they stop pest flies like the nasty bush fly from breeding in it. Plus, all that tunneling aerates the soil and cycles nutrients. It's free ecological services on a massive scale. Australia even had a huge project to introduce dung beetles specifically for this reason.
And they have that slightly gruesome but useful role in museums and taxidermy.
Right. The dermestid beetles, or skin beetles. Their larvae are incredibly good at cleaning the flesh off bones. Museums and researchers use colonies of them to prepare skeletons for study or display. They do a perfect, delicate job.
Okay, let's wrap up with the more modern connections. Cultural uses, and especially that boom in technology inspired by beetles, biomedics, and even robotics.
Culturally, they're still used. Beetling art is a thing using those iridescent elytra, which keep their color for ages. In parts of Mexico, people decorate certain large, placid Zophoris beetles and wear them as living jewelry. Their hard shells and slow movement make it possible.
Living brooches. And what about beetle fighting?
Yeah, in places like Thailand, male rhinoceros beetles, xylotroops, are pitted against each other. It's often linked to gambling, exploiting their natural territorial aggression.
But the really cutting-edge stuff is the technological inspiration, moving from just copying to actually integrating, like the Bombardier beetle spray.
Yeah, that controlled, high-pressure chemical mixing and ejection system has directly inspired designs for new types of fine mist spray technologies, especially where you need to mix two components right at the point of delivery.
And the Namib desert beetle, the water collector.
That directly led to prototypes for self-filling water bottles. Mimicking that pattern of water-loving bumps and water-repelling troughs on surfaces allows passive water collection from humid air. Huge potential for arid regions.
And then cyborg insects. That sounds like pure sci-fi.
It's real and developing fast, often funded by defense agencies like DARPA. Scientists have implanted microelectrodes into the flight muscles of large beetles, like Mycinorhina torquata,
To control them.
to remotely steer their flight, control their walking, basically turning them into tiny steerable platforms, maybe for surveillance.
Wow. Direct remote control.
And there's more. They've strapped tiny, ultra-lightweight cameras, like 1/4 of a gram, onto the backs of smaller desert beetles, like Asbolus or Iliotes. These camera backpacks can stream video for hours.
So the beetle becomes a living drone.
Essentially, yeah. For observation in places where normal robots can't easily go, beetles are tough, small, energy efficient, nature's original micro-robots.
But with all this potential, their conservation is a worry, right? Many must be quite vulnerable.
Very much so. Because so many beetles are highly specialized, tied to one type of plant or a specific stage of wood decay or a certain habitat, they're really vulnerable to habitat loss or change. Island species like Halictopleuris undatus in Madagascar are often at high risk.
Long life cycles don't help either, probably.
Exactly. Slow reproduction, specific needs, it makes them fragile. Conservation often relies on using charismatic species, like the big stag beetles, as flagship species to raise public awareness for protecting invertebrate habitats more broadly.
What an absolutely incredible deep dive. We started with that mind-bending statistic, 1 in 4 animals is a beetle, and everything we've covered just backs up that dominance. Their physiology, their behavior, it's just complexity layered on complexity.
They really are the ultimate masters of adaptation, aren't they? They can be a devastating pest, a multi-million-dollar agricultural ally, piece of living art, or the blueprint for our next gadget, all built on that simple yet endlessly versatile armored body plan.
We've seen some truly astonishing mechanisms. The physical gill working because of nitrogen diffusion.
The multi-stage life switch of hypermetamorphosis.
That incredible structural engineering in the thistle tortoise beetle's reproductive organ.
And maybe the pinnacle is that physiological mastery, like in the Alaskan beetle, Cucujas clevipes pernicious, surviving -100 Celsius by basically turning its insides into a type of biological glass, using those special alcohols, xylomen and erythritol, concentrated through deliberate dehydration.
That level of biochemical control over freezing, it almost doesn't seem real. It really makes you wonder, with estimates maybe 1 to 2 million undiscovered beetle species still out there.
Exactly. When you think about that vast hidden biodiversity, how many more biochemical marvels, physiological tricks are still locked away inside this one order of animals?
What secrets of resilience or chemistry or longevity are waiting in the next million beetles we haven't even found yet?
What inspirations for new materials, new medicines, new engineering solutions are we still completely missing just because we haven't looked closely enough at the most successful group of animals on Earth?
It really seems the more we learn, the more profound Haldane's observation becomes. If you want to understand biological success, adaptation, survival, you really do need to appreciate that inordinate fondness for beetles.